Namaskar. Hello and welcome to 𝗖𝗄𝗏𝗀𝗏 channel. I'm your host Shekhar Iyer. The political fallout of the incident that took place when US bombed the heck out of Iran, three major sites, everything decimated. We've already had two shows on this today. Today we are going to talk about what does it mean for India and what does it mean for India-US relations. Shekhar Iyer has got a totally different perspective on all these things. He's looking at it from a different angle and a different lens. Let's welcome Shekhar ji. Shekhar ji, namaskar and welcome to 𝗖𝗄𝗏𝗀𝗏 channel. How are you, sir?
Namaskar, Shekhar Namaskar. We all woke up to this news of Operation Midnight Hammer. In fact, it hammered a lot of us out of sleep, I should say, or that sleepy drag you have in the morning before you have a cup of coffee. It's that
Yes.
kind of shock and awe kind of thing. Because everybody thought, President Trump said he would take 2 weeks to time and that he was in a Hamlet like situation to be or not to be, the sense to join Israel in the war or not. But then it has happened. Of course, the military dimensions of that you have already covered in two shows. More details are coming. This is supposed to be one of the biggest US airstrikes after perhaps 2017 strike in Afghanistan on ISIS. Now, those details are there. I mean, perhaps we could touch upon all that, what is next in Iran. But first of all, after the strike, uh, how is India looking at it? How is the Indian government looking at it? And what is the sense of worry you get here in New Delhi? Well, the first thing, there are two dimensions, rather two aspects, which is what is, there is an anxiety, one is, with Israel, we have a deep security relationship. In the sense, we had a big standoff with Pakistan, the Operation Sindoor, which is in a pause, where the Israeli equipment, Israeli weapon systems, Israeli air defense system, Israel air rockets. I mean, all of which is, of course, some of it is a collaboration between Indian companies and Israeli firms. They were in action. And since then, we have been replenishing them by asking the Israel to deliver them fast because we expect this pause on Operation Sindoor may have to be lifted because that could happen anytime. That is one thing which has been. So the big question is this prolonged war now. It started on June 13th with Israeli strikes on Iran. I mean, they took down uh, scientists, nuclear scientists, their military commanders, and so on. But the sense one got was Israel was not able to penetrate into the main issue on hand, particularly the enrichment nuclear facility. And that is why the Americans have stepped in. That's the story we are hearing now. But the other aspect, which is the one is the security thing. Now, our worry is whether we would continue to get those replenishment, whether our inventories would come fast. If Israel is going to bog down into a long war, then will Israeli firms, which are contracted to supply our systems, will there be a problem? Well, that is one problem. One. The problem two is our energy needs. Now, Iran Parliament has just now declared that they would close down Strait of Hormuz. Now, Strait of Hormuz, we all know, is a very important waterway through which almost 40% of world energy needs pass through. The shipping lines are through that. It connects the Persian Gulf with the Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean. And most of these supplies are intended for India, China, other countries in South Asia and to other places. Europe and America do not depend on Strait of Hormuz. But if Strait of Hormuz is blocked, it affects Indian supplies. In the sense, we do almost 40 to 50% of our imports come through that route, and this is something I think immediately. I would say it's a crisis point because over a period of time we have been reducing imports from Iran, and we have been buying more from Russia and America, and this has been going on. And ever since President Trump took office, with American insistence that you more buyer for oil and cut down your purchases from Iran. That has been going on. But what about the purchases, the crude oil that we buy from Saudi Arabia, from United Arab Emirates, from Qatar, from Oman? I mean, the supplies include also LNG, which come through ships. So our first worry is how much will it affect? And if Strait of Hormuz is closed by Iran, because I mean, they can militarily do it, because the width of the waterway, of course, it's about 33 kilometers wide, but it's only 3 kilometer width which is available for the shipping. So it's easy to block that. But if it blocks, well, Americans have already warned. We just heard US Secretary of saying that would be a suicide for Iran. In the sense, Americans would step in because all their allies would be affected, because the oil which Saudi Arabia sells or UAE sells or Oman, Qatar, Kuwait, or even Iraq, all these would have to go through Strait of Hormuz to get out from that point to enter world market. So Americans have been warning repeatedly the whole day, I think, that they would bomb the hell out of Iran, and it would be far more serious. That's what President Trump's, last night's that brief, the video speech he did, mentioned it very clearly. But that is something definitely is worrying us. Well, what are the options now? If the Strait of Hormuz is affected, even by a standoff, by a military confrontation, even that could set the prices soaring. Because after all, when there is a crisis, everybody wants to make money. So which is, if it is now 70, even if it goes up to $80 a barrel, that could immediately affect our budget, and could be a cause for inflation. So that is something that we are watching. And today, Prime Minister Modi got a telephone call from the Iranian president. And when the war started, Israeli PM had spoken to Prime Minister Modi. And today, the Iranian president Masoud Pezeshkian, he called up to explain the situation, the crisis, and Prime Minister Modi, in what has been now officially stated, did call for immediate de-escalation, for a dialogue, and made it very clear that India does not favor continued confrontation, and diplomacy is the only way they can find a way forward. Well, India has not openly come out with the condemnation. Now, of all people who have condemned is Pakistan. Pakistan has condemned the US strikes. And just a few hours after, they had recommended Nobel Prize for Trump. And after their
pinch the baby and rock the cradle. Sir, pinch the baby and rock the cradle.
But I don't know whether Pakistan can even pinch Americans. But this is to convey to Iranians, look, we had nothing to do with this. If those B-2 bombers came, they probably came all the way from the US or from bases in Europe or from the base in 𝗤𝗏 Garcia or somewhere, but not from our bases were not used. But we do not know, because after all, that lunch General Asif Munir had with President Trump in White House had a lot to do with whatever followed now, what we are saying, lot to do with that Pakistan must stay out of this and must help Americans. Well, we do not know, but then Pakistan's behavior, one hand saying yes to Trump to go ahead with the operation, this midnight hammer, and then to condemn it. Well, in India, Sonia Gandhi, a day early, probably the people who wrote a speech or wrote an article in the Hindu did not expect that Trump would act fast, because Sonia Gandhi, I don't know if she had even read what she had signed that article, talked of, we need to condemn, we need to be more on the side of Iranians, not on the side of Israel. Well, our problem is a tightrope walk. But whoever wrote it for her, particularly, I suspect retired Indian First Foreign Service officers, some of them could have been even foreign secretary level officers, and they wrote a lot of altruism, but then there is never a moral principle guiding any country's foreign policy. Even our non-aligned approach, right from Nehru's time, down up to a period when we realized there was no two worlds to remain non-aligned. when the unipolar thing came, we had to make our own choices. Now, that apart, but today our problem is both are good friends. Israel is our security partner, and Iran is our trade partner. And through the period when Iran has faced sanctions, we have somehow managed to keep buying oil and also trying to even send whatever they need. That trade has been going on. But it is also fact, under American pressure, our oil purchases have been coming down. I mean, that's no doubt about it. And I have some figures also. Well, oil trade with Iran has dropped from about $14 billion in 2017 to just $1.4 billion last year. So you can see how we have also been forced to cut down. But even $1.4 billion of oil trade is a big thing. On the other hand, Sree, our imports, security, I mean defense imports from Israel, since Prime Minister Modi took office, has gone up. Now, this is also an interesting comparison. It has gone up from $5.6 million around the time from 2015, and today it is about $128 million. I mean, annually. These are annual figures. So you can imagine the kind of purchases we have been doing in terms of technology, in terms of satellite systems, in terms of surveillance technology. There is a whole bunch of things India has been either in collaboration or in technology transfer. A lot of things have been happening there. So we have been trying to balance that. And our problem is, how long can we do this balancing, and how are we going to do it? So that brings us to the question: if Israel-Iran conflict, is going to prolong, so what are we going to do? Well, I hear from Petroleum Ministry official is that we will continue to do what we are doing, right? Ever since we expected, this problem has been festering ever since we expected. I have some interesting figures, sir. Like, for instance, we have been buying more and more of the Russian crude. Even
Yes.
if you take the figures for June itself, and that is something like 2.2 million barrels a day. And Russian crude, it comes, through the Suez Canal, and it comes by
Red
Cape
Sea.
of Good Hope,
Yeah.
and then it comes. So we don't have a transport issue. And also and from America itself, we have been buying about 400,000 plus barrels per day from America. And of course, if you compare this with what we have been getting through the Strait of Hormuz, and those figures are also, looks like something that we have been always bracing up for the situation. Like from a purchase from, say, Saudi Arabia. From Saudi Arabia, it is about 525,000 barrels a day. And from UAE is almost, say, 590,000 barrels a day. And Iraq, we have been buying more than even from Saudi Arabia and UAE. That's about 900,000, 917,000 barrels per day. So we have been trying to see that, we are not dependent on a single source. Though Iranian oil comes at quite a good discount, but then the pressure on us is such that, particularly because of the sanctions, we have been trying to see that, we buy from a basket of suppliers rather than from a single source. So there we are. But then there are other worries, sir. For instance, what happens to those long-term projects like Chabad port, where we have invested heavily? And what about that India Middle East, project in which India, US, Israel, we are those kind of project that could get permanently damaged if this, standpoint becomes. And also, we have been looking at Iran. We have been looking at Iran also in terms of trade. The trade for trade in other areas, and also our trade to Afghanistan. Because the idea is, with Pakistan and Afghanistan relationship no longer in what it used to be. We have been looking at sending our exports to Iran through Chabad port, and then went through the land route to Afghanistan. So these are some of the things. So the one main worry is what happens if Strait of Hormuz is closed. Second thing is, in the security aspect, we talk, what about the role of Pakistan in this? See, because Pakistan can say one thing, do another thing. Then again, reverse it also, because today it is condemning the US strikes. So, and then role of Pakistan is also important, because given America's now preoccupation with Iran, and that promises of getting the latest equipment, refurbishing the Pakistan weapons, I mean getting new stuff, latest stuff, both from China and America. Well, the General Asif Munir could be tempted for another adventurism. That would mean the pause on Operation Sindoor is lifted, and then we brace up for a huge standoff. And one thing is clear, which has been said several times by the Prime Minister himself: one more nonsense, they are going to get it very hard, because this is the new India approach. Because we have put an end to that era where we used to send dossiers and wait for condemnation. And even today, Shree, those who are saying that Modi's foreign policy hasn't worked, our diplomacy has failed, you had to send, they don't understand one thing. What was even Sonia Gandhi, for writing that article, she keeps on saying India's thing has fallen and all that. But what were we doing before 2014? We were sending dossiers. After that, 26/11 happened in Mumbai in 2008. More than 166 people were killed, including many foreigners. We kept sending dossiers. But so that era is over. Now, that's why, in terms of security, our thought here is, what if Pakistan feels, after a few days, if Americans appear to be getting more and more entrenched or bogged down there, then perhaps it could give us a chance to try something. So our alertness has gone up, because we are on constant alert. And just today, the National Investigation Agencies have arrested 2 local people in Pahalgam for harboring at least 3 terrorists who were involved in that massacre. So
all 3 are of Pakistani origin. We have an article, viewers, in pgurus.com. Do read that. Sir, over to you.
Yes, sir. So that is also thing. So these are the 2 things. I mean, the security thing, this is very heavy. Of course, including our petroleum minister, government, they have been saying, look, yes, there is a sense of anxiety, but we are not overtly worried. But it's a thing we are looking at. Then the other big question, sir, which is coming is, what will be the end game of this? When will this war end? Because this is something that has started. And everyone thinks, we have seen long wars. First, you had an 8-year Iran-Iraq war. And this Gaza thing has been going on, since October 2023. So the worry is that how long can this go on, and what will be the end game? Now, well, right from beginning, we have heard, even yesterday, after this the strikes on the 3 places, that is 3 enrichment facilities, including Fordo, Isfahan, and Natanz. Washington has been repeatedly saying that this is not for regime change in Iran, that they are not going to change regime in Iran, and it would be rather more for the stated purpose of seeing that Iran doesn't have any weapons grade enrichment facility working. I mean, this is the stated objective. Whereas probably Israel and Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu is more ambitious, I would say, saying that ultimately it should lead to a regime change, so that a problem is hopefully fixed on a final level. I do not know. Iran is a huge country, 90 million people. Is it easier to bring about such a change? Well, local people are unhappy and things like that. So Shree, these are the thoughts before us. So over to you. I don't know how you look at it. What is it in terms of for India to look for? And is there an end game that Americans have in mind? Share.
Thank you so much, Shekharji. As a matter of fact, just moments before we went online here, I had three generals come and discuss all the aspects of this whole thing. If there is a regime change, how can that be brought about? What are the conditions that need to be created before you can have a successful regime change? So their opinion was that it will take up to 10 years. It's not something that's going to happen right away. However, the start has been done. And they were very skeptical whether the son of 𝗟𝗲𝗄𝗏 Pahlavi will be welcomed by Iranians, considering how his secret enforcement agency called SAVAK, SAVAK, that was supposed to be just as equally brutal as the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, of the Mullah regime. So if you want to trade 6 for a half a dozen, there is not much gain for the people. So how is the son going to portray himself as not being as cruel as his father, being people friendly, being democracy friendly? So there is a lot of things, and they started talking about step by step, this is what happens here, this is what happens here, this is what happens. So we are at the beginning of that. There is some dissidence already happening. In fact, in 2023, when that girl got killed for not wearing the hijab by the moral police, there was a lot more outrage. But that's 2 years ago. Things don't stay. You can't sustain a movement of this kind unless there is some impetus, there is some help from abroad, where their voices have to be amplified, things of that nature. So all that hasn't happened much. In fact, on the first day of hostilities, Iran shut off its internal internet. Shekharji, Iran shut off its internal internet. So internet was not available to many people. So how much they are able to get what is going on? So these are all big question marks. So we have to wait and see how this plays out. I think in the next couple of weeks, it will be clear. That's why I think US said that it's a very limited intent engagement. We just wanted to make sure that we put a full stop to the nuclear plans of Iran. That's it. And left it at that. In my opinion, they let Israel go and do the mop-up operations. It is believed that Mossad has very deep connects inside Iran. For example, there was a factory run by Mossad, but the Iranians who are working there were thinking that this is a part of the Iranian government. They didn't know that the drones they were creating was to be used against them. So Mossad has a very, very tight relationship there. It's easy to understand, Shekharji. Zarathustra is supposed to be the person who is ahead of what happened with Moses, and there is a school of thought. I won't say that is ultimate. I have not read that much. The school of thought says that Zarathustra's teachings were modified, and that's what became Judaism or Jews. So this is again one school of thought. We have provided references. There's a show, there's a cartoon, there's a AI-based video I created called Shukracharya. Viewers can look at that. But it only mentions in passing. What I'm trying to say is that Jews have strong roots that go back to Iran. They had a lot of presence in Iraq also. But between the period 1948 to 1970, everybody migrated. At that time, at least they could leave their clothes, leave with their clothes and somehow do a negotiated settlement to leave to Israel. And the number of Jews left in Iran, I have no idea. But clearly, Israel will be tasked with bringing about a regime change, because Netanyahu is very clear that that's when he's going to stop. We'll have to wait and see. It's not easy, sir. It's a tricky story. UN is not what it used to be. Nobody's looking at them as an impartial body anymore. So UN cannot bring in their peacekeeping forces and say, okay, we will conduct elections and we will declare democracy. That's again a far, it's not so easy. So we'll have to wait and see how this plays out. Certainly, Iran is 99.2% literate. The systems are there. The thing that you need to have is the confidence of the people that if we cast our votes, that it is not going to be muddled in any way, tinkered with in any way, that our true sense of, feelings come out reflected in the vote. See, that is a very difficult thing to convince. And I mean, a country like India, if it is tasked with conducting the elections, it will be great. But India doesn't do that. As a policy, India doesn't do things like that. But if you can do that, because India has all the EVMs in the world, no problem there. All they have to do is take out the English name and the Indian name plates and put Farsi names and symbols. Voila, you got it. They can even send about a delegation of 5,000 officers who can help the EVM part and let the rest of the stuff be managed by the other people. See, that is where the contention is, right? That the vote I cast with VVPAT, even that you cast this thing, this is what you got. So there are still some steps before that can happen. Certainly, India can play a huge role in this, and you would get a great amount of goodwill. Let's see how it goes. I mean, I'm just throwing this out of left park. India typically doesn't like to go out and suggest something like this. Let me be the first one to suggest. I don't know, Shekharji, what you think about it.
Well, sir, my thoughts go back to 2001 when I had gone to Tehran to cover the visit of Prime Minister 𝗥𝗘𝗙𝗿 𝗏𝗏𝗏. It was a visit by an Indian Prime Minister after a long gap, and at the time the President of Iran was Ayatollah Khatami. Khatami was seen as a very moderate leader who was for all for modernization of Iran, and he probably realized what the people actually felt about the clergy rule since 1979. And during my visit in 2001, I happened to interact with a number of people, young people, and particularly women. And also, we were given clear instructions to avoid being seen speaking to women or avoiding handshake. For many of us, probably the first greeting is handshake, unless it is namaskar. But then, so I remember one occasion where I happened to visit an Iranian family in Tehran, and I was taken to their home. And Tehran is still very beautiful. It is so European-like, probably the impact of the Shah's regime. So well laid out streets. You can see in Tehran that the what is supposed to be what we would think is a drain on the sidewalk, by the sidewalk, is actually a clear stream of water running, and pistas being sold like peanuts in Delhi streets. That kind of thing, and you felt that people were quite nice. But once I got into their home, this particular Iranian family, I could see how women used to cast away the cloak, that burqa and all that, let loose their hair, and they would all be in jeans and t-shirts, and 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 I happened to strike a conversation with a person who was a interpreter, and I said, Ayatollah died in 79, isn't it? I think in 80, a year after the revolution. Right. And her first response was, thank God, thank Allah for that. That if Khomeini had remained for a longer time, because people were looking at Ayatollah Khatami as a kind of a person who could, bring in the change that was necessary. And I saw more of German cars on the streets of Tehran. Even the taxis were all German cars. I mean, this is my impression of 2001. But then between 2001 and with gradual, power being consolidating under Ayatollah Khamenei, who has emerged as the supreme leader, definitely, you have seen repression of political opponents, repression of journalists, and a lot has been going on, and particularly condition of women. I mean, it's a very sad tale, because some of the friendship I managed to strike over a period of time went silent, because they feared that their mails could be, under watch or surveillance, monitored, and gradually I lost contact. So the point I'm mentioning is, sir, the big question is, I mean, the bombs that have been dropped by B-2 bombers. We are told that these bombs were intended for those underground facilities, particularly far down. Now, technically speaking, these bombs can go up to 60 meters, whereas the facilities are probably, there's a concrete layer and they're about 90 meters. So the big question is, of course, it's too early to judge. Have the bombs actually damaged the facility? And the second question is, of course, with Israel, because the Israelis were striking at these facilities. Probably when the US realized that Israeli aircrafts are not able to do the job, that's why B-2 were requisitioned, and you saw the B-2 bombers dropping what is called bunker buster bombs. And they also fired Tomahawk missiles from the naval carriers. So, so the big question is, yes, the enrichment facility, because the last we heard was Iran had been able to achieve 87% enrichment, uranium enrichment kind of a grade.
One
So,
IAEA report at Fordo.
yeah.
Yes, yes.
And probably you need 90% plus to develop,
Correct,
real
correct.
weapons grade uranium bombs. One doesn't know whether they reach that stage. But we are told that one of the reasons why Trump advanced this strike, because he had talk of 2 weeks, was some activity was noticed on 18th and 19th and 20th, where Iranians were, there were truck movement near Fordo and those other places. Probably they were taking that away to some other places. They could have still carted away, but they can't make a proper bomb, but then they can definitely make what I'm told is dirty bombs.
Yeah.
In the sense, radiologically dispersed devices. And that could be, of course, this is no capacity for a full-fledged nuclear weapons, making, but definitely enough to, scare people, which would also be a kind of a nuclear terrorism. So, interestingly, of course, as usual, our left liberal secular are, are waxing eloquent on how India has betrayed Iran, India should have been. But, sir, look at America and its allies. None of them have condemned it. For instance, UK Prime Minister said, well, Iran should give up this program. That Iran having this bomb is something that is scaring many nations. That is why even today, even as Saudi Arabia, UAE, or even Qatar, of course, Qatar over the last few years has managed to develop some relation with the Iranian leadership as a counter to its problems with Saudi Arabia. But even, their condemnation is more of a lip service, because they were also not very comfortable with the idea that the Iranian clergy leadership will have a control over a bomb, nuclear bomb. Now, these are the things which are there. So, what is the US going to do if it realizes that there are still stockpiles left? So, how are they going to hear that? Now, the big question is, what happens now? I mean, what happens now for us is we would want an end, quick end, the sense, okay, at least Iran clergy has enough wisdom and realizes, look, this is the point, we stop here. And probably without a regime change, Iran can perhaps opt for a negotiated situation where it can, get out of these sanctions. Because Iran has a huge potential to emerge as an economic power. Instead of wasting its energy, with the thought that it can one day nuclear bomb Israel out of existence. I think probably in the last few days of negotiations between the US and the Iranian interlocutors was towards this end, that they were probably negotiating for lifting of some sanctions in response to Iran giving up its program. But then Americans were not convinced that Iran was serious to give up its program. And Ayatollah Khattabi's statements that this is not the way to talk, Iran will never surrender, all those bluff and bluster kind of statements did not really help Iran. Now, question is, how long should the Iranian people suffer? Because there is a huge potential. I mean, if you look at it, because since I visited Iran, met with Iranian people, they're wonderful people. I mean, why should so many of them? There are 90 million of them.
Yes.
And they can emerge as a country which, of course, the history of Iran has been, they have faced a repressive regime under Shah, and they have faced repressive since the Islamic Revolution there. So this is a scenario that we are seeing. And of course, Iran has also shown tremendous resilience. They overcame that 8-year war with Iraq, which lasted till, I think, 1988. Then Then they had huge civil unrest. 2021, 22 were huge street protests, and that also they have overcome. So, well, at the moment it looks like, Israel is a kind of a winner, you can say, because its objectives have been largely met. And also the fact that ever since October 2023, in October 7, 2023, when the Hamas carried out that horrific, all the people who were involved in it, whether they were Hamas, whether they were Hezbollah or Houthis, and the backer, the Iran, today all of them have suffered severely. So this is a scenario that is emerging. Our India's hope is that some kind of a settlement can be achieved. I am told UN Security Council urgent meeting has been called, and looks like China and sir, and today a Russian official was saying there are other countries willing to give Iran nuclear aids.
So that's hype, sir. So I find it very, very difficult to believe.
This is not something like, it's not available off the
𝗥𝗘𝗙𝗏𝗥𝗘𝗙𝗥𝗡.
shelf that they can provide. For the asking, somebody can just get a nuclear stuff. So, of course, Russia, Russia would, yes, if oil sales from Iran decline, then the demand for Russian oil is going up. Since India itself is placing more oil, barrels per day than before, that is there. But then, so China now. Just now, I saw a statement by U.S. Secretary of State asking China, to pressurize Iran not to block Strait of Hormuz. Because after all, China's supplies come through that. So
Correct.
they're trying to tell China, look, your interest won't be served if you continue to back Iran in this mess.
Right.
Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. I think we have covered the gist of it, and we have a few questions from our viewers. Let's go with them if you don't mind, sir. First question from Krishna Kishore. Munir bugged IRGC and leaked Iran's blueprints of secret locations. What are the implications? Is Shia Sunni backstab legal in Asman book? I think this may be Asmani has written a book, sir. I don't know.
Well, I think Kishore probably wants to know that how did the surveillance by Israel as well as by the US on the Iran's undercover covert nuclear enrichment work, that Americans and Israelis have been able to pinpoint the locations, have been able to get satellite data, and also the kind of centrifuge plants, because it is said Iran had a capacity to build up to 1,500 centrifuges. So that's a huge number. I mean, quite scary to say. That kind of weapons capability.
Sir, this is the only thing that I know of that Asim Munir has alleged to have done, that he presented a wristwatch to one of the senior IRGC commanders, and that had a GPS location. I'm not aware of the other stuff, so we'll have to wait and see whether that's true or not. Next question from Krishnamurthy Hunagon. Sir, 1 second. Sonia Gandhi's article in the Anti-Hindu calls for India to side with Iran and condemn Israel. What strategic or ideological drivers might explain this position in its promotion by this ecosystem?
I think, sir, the only thing is to put Modi in a tight spot.
Yeah.
And also the hope that it also appeal to what they think is their core vote bank, and say, look, Modi is... Sir, they are always looking at it, because I have seen now suddenly, people have come out of their closets, particularly those who thought after 10 years, finally, the Pahalgam massacre, then Operation Sindoor. I mean, this is one good moment to corner Prime Minister Modi on foreign policy and defense issue. So you have seen a narrative, constant narratives, which is in several WhatsApp. I can see some veteran journalists also, waxing eloquent on how Modi's thing has collapsed, Modi's foreign policy has collapsed, India has not been able to achieve what it wanted in Operation Sindoor, and things like that. Now, there is a powerful ecosystem which feels this is the moment to corner Modi on foreign policy. But then foreign policy doesn't immediately turn into, if Modi's challenges in foreign policy will not turn into immediately votes for the Congress. But that apart, why did Sonia chose to write this article? Because I think, sir, I can hazard a guess. That is because Rahul Gandhi's tweets have not been getting that kind of traction. Media is not willing to take Rahul Gandhi's assertions, averments rather, on foreign policy or on India's defense so seriously, because it is often, just challenges our intelligence as to the point as to how can an opposition leader of the opposition, at a point when India has, largely achieved what it wanted to achieve in Operation Sindoor, in terms of, damaging several Pakistani air bases, and sending out, and Pakistan has finally admitted, yes, we suffered heavily. You heard their defense minister recently concede, yes, the Indian action and has damaged our infrastructure, particularly defense infrastructure. Now, with that kind of thing, and Sonia Gandhi writing this, because we have been always told that Sonia Gandhi's health is under strain. She was holidaying in Shimla, and she was staying in the house that has been built outskirts of Shimla, built by Priyanka Gandhi for her mother and for herself and her family. She was admitted there. Then she came to Delhi. She was admitted Gangaram Hospital, her favorite hospital, and then she was. That her concerns are more regarding her health rather than any direct policy formulations of the Congress. But
so did she say I wrote it from my hospital bed just for extra effect?
no, sir, I think those who decided to send out this article realized that since Rahul's pronouncements are not getting that kind of traction, so why not Sonia Gandhi herself step in?
So this is one reason, sir.
No,
this is one reason.
Sir, article has been written not by her. Sir, in the great days of UPA rule, or in the right from time she became Congress president, I knew her speech writers. And I used to tell them that you have built her image only through her speeches. And one of the speech writers is my good friend. And he's a good at...
Who shall go unnamed?
Since he was educated abroad, he knew to write English in a manner that impacts straight, direct, rather than that old British style, lot of passive sentences rather than active ones. Because Indian English, rather, at one time, or even now, you can see, is largely filled with officialese, and as well as it's always in a passive voice.
Yeah.
Rather than the American style of more active voice, active verbs. So Sonia Gandhi's speeches sounded good. And I used to compliment the speechwriter, saying, well, your education in America, your work in America has given you that, to talk in that subject, predicate object, rather than in a roundabout way. Well, even our Hindi speech writers were good, excepting that one of them landed her in trouble with 𝗏𝗏𝗙𝗏𝗏𝗏. So
yes.
So this article, well, it says, look, dump Israel, and because the relationship with Israel was not started with Modi, whether it started from Roosevelt time, diplomatic full diplomatic relationship was established in early 90s. I mean 92, if I remember, and that's how it has gone on. And we are in a unique position, instead of appreciating the fact that if anybody can play a go-between or a good mediator, it could be India. Because India understands the concerns of Israel, India understands the problems, and Iranian leadership has been engaging us, throughout. And also, well, we may have had some misgivings about how they responded after Operation Sindoor, or, because after all, Pakistan is their neighbor also. Well, these have not come in the way of a good engagement between the governments of India and Iran. So therefore, I think Congress leaders, particularly Rahul Gandhi and his team, they cannot let go a single opportunity as they see it, where they feel they can put Prime Minister in the dock, never matter whatever is the long-term interest of India or even short-term.
Sir, I put this picture to tell our viewers, because some of you said that this is AI generated. It doesn't matter whether it is AI generated or not. This fellow was at their wedding, Huma Abedin and Alex Soros. Sir, what should concern, especially Indian Americans who have citizenship and who are democratic supporters, is in the last Democratic National Convention leading up to the election, Alex Soros and Huma had a booth way up there in the center, National Convention Center. These booths are considered special, sir, because you can wine, dine, and you can actually entertain guests like it's your office. Two former presidents, along with their spouses, Bill and Hillary Clinton, Obama and Michelle Obama, they went up there to meet these people. You understand the significance of that, right? When they are the president, they are the most powerful men or women, if she had won, Hillary had won, on earth. Why do they have to go and meet them there? That tells you the power of these two people. This is not good. I mean, this one picture should convince all the Indian Americans who are voting Democrat that perhaps they should change their vote, because this is as close to the Democratic Party as it gets. We all know what Huma Abedin was before she, parted company with Hillary Clinton, but I'm sure their bonds are iron tight. So let's go to the next question, sir. Let me just take out this picture also. Ameya Rupal wants to know, Sree, if and when there is a regime change, should India strategize to win contracts and export to rebuild Iran? Let's focus on our interests rather than blind support to anyone. Sir.
Well, definitely. We have long-term interests, because one is our energy needs, and we have seen how over a period of time we have broad-based we have sourced from several countries in the region. That's one. Well, already there are several Indian companies working on infrastructure projects in Iran.
Yeah.
I mean, we have been doing that. I'm not talking of just the Chabad port. There are other projects. Over a period of time, Indian companies have set up branches in Iran, and there has been a good construction business. A lot of things have been going on. That's all. Now the question is, a regime change. We will not like to be seen as somebody wanting a change or wanting. We will, because as recently Jaishankar, our foreign minister, put it, India takes the world as it is. Whatever is there is there. I mean, whether we have to deal with President Trump or we have to deal with Iranian clergy or clergy-run government. Now, these are situations that they are not in our hands. So we have to take it as it is. Of course, every country's interest guides its foreign policy or its defense policy. Yeah. That also. Now, our only worry is this current standoff should not, enlarge into a bigger conflict in which Russia is drawn in, China is drawn in, and becomes bigger. So already, what is the worry? The worry is, now Iran has officially said, we will now target every American civilian and every American military personnel or their establishment. I mean, good question that is coming is, will Iranians be so foolish to attack American military establishment in the region? Because in the region itself, in the West Asia itself, you've got 19 American bases, whether it's in Qatar, whether it is in Saudi Arabia or UAE. They have bases all over, or Iraq. That's one. Now, second question is, in terms of number, personnel, there are more than 50,000 American army personnel there. So the boot on the ground is 50,000. Now, if anything happens to them, I mean, US cannot, and also US, I think the 5th Fleet is based in Bahrain. So there is a huge American military presence there. And if Iran does carry out its threat in terms of, dirty bombs or things like that, this is only going to make things worse. It will make things worse for all of us. That's why our worry is, that the current, I mean, war is never a solution, which India has been saying it long. And second thing is, because what goes for Iran's nuclear program also goes for Pakistan's nuclear program.
Yeah.
Because we just called off the nuclear blackmail of Pakistan. That was the main objective of the Operation Sindhu, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Last question. Thank you, Mahesh Narayan. The question is, has Iran been working with the IAEA for regular inspections? If so, what is the validity, credibility of IAEA after this episode? I think they were part of NSG, Nuclear Suppliers Group, which means that you would allow IAEA for regular inspections. Sir, that's my recollection. I could be wrong.
No, well, sir, see, that is what has been said, that barring Israel, which had a completely different view of the stages at the stage of Iran's preparation for assembling a nuclear bomb. The Israel view was that they had almost reached that point. So Israel had to be, Iran had to be stopped down. Well, IAEA view was they had reached up to 87%. Enriched uranium about 87%, though that's about 3-4% less than 90% you need. So there has been, and also there was a report that President Trump has not been happy with what the with 𝗟𝗏 𝗏𝗏𝗏, as an intelligence chief. I don't know whether
that's tamasha, sir. She was there in the situation control room.
So, well, sir, I think there is always, in war, there is always a surprise element in any war operations. So probably these were all part of that thing.
Yes.
Well, in terms of, before we wind up this show, I mentioned in the beginning as to, the whole nature military, the scale of this operations that the US has carried out. We are told some 125 aircraft were involved, including 7 B-2 bombers, and they dropped 12 bunker bombs, bunker buster bombs, and I'm told about 30 Tomahawk missiles. And each bomb, I'm told, bunker bombs cost millions. So you can imagine already with this 3 targets, millions of dollars spent, and hopefully at least they should bring some kind of a restraint on Iran.
Thank you so much, sir. What a wonderful session. Viewers, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Namaskar.
Namaskar.